Is it Westonhausen? Yes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I also want to join in commending the maker of the statement, the respected Honorable Member for Ofonse Oyerbi, Honorable Kojo Opon Kurma. Mr. Speaker, the issue on the table and before this House has more to do with development financing than, if you like, project planning and implementation. Mr. Speaker, I say this because when you look at development financing, basically one of the ways government finance development is through debt financing. And debt financing go either in the form of monetary debt financing or infrastructure debt financing. PPP is one of the means through which we fund involvement or development by way of infrastructure debt financing. Mr. Speaker, the issue of PPP and its importance has been highlighted by the maker of the statement. The honourable member has specified some of the myths, some of the challenges, some of the inherent challenges in the implementation or in the adoption of PPP arrangement in development financing, awareness creation. But we realize that almost every single sector of the economy, transportation, housing, if you like, education, we can really leverage on public-private partnership to ensure development. Mr. Speaker, the former Vice President, Dr. Alhaji Mahmoud Bawumia, came out with an initiative that we were hoping that we could implement should the Ghanaian people, if they had given us the opportunity, especially in the area of education. Where will you have to get fund, Mr. Speaker, to go into the construction of hostels? It doesn't make economic sense where government will have to take major infrastructure development like the building of hostels, and we have to rely on limited funding from Get Fund to support educational facilities. Mr. Speaker, PPP is one of the viable means to ensuring that government is able to bridge the development gap or in fact in the area of infrastructure. Mr. Speaker, the importance of infrastructure is well established. We will enhance economic development through the provision of infrastructure. Mr. Speaker, but I want to highlight one important thing that the maker of the statement has stated. How do we make sure that PPP works? That is the focus. And I think that we should be, as a House, we all agree that PPP is a viable tool to bridging infrastructure deficit or infrastructure gap. But how do we ensure that it works? I think that apart from the law, the act that was passed by this House, we should look at the projects submitted by the Minister of Finance to this House in the budget. Which of them can we offload to public, PPP? And if the household decide that, look, in the interest of limited budgetary allocation, let's offload ABCD projects to public-private partnership, then clearly every member of the House would have known that ABCD projects are offloaded to be implemented not through the mainstream government funding, but through private-public partnership. Mr. Speaker, there is one thing we don't know. The benefit of PPP to the private investor is even far more than the classical contracting regime, where you will do a project and they'll pay you and you go. The importance of PPP is such that it enhances investment longevity. In other words, you can draw revenue over 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, but in the case of the classical contracting, you do the project, they pay you, you take your money and go. Value for money, returns on investment is not even, it doesn't make investment sense to do that. A private person will rather be more interested in doing private-public partnership than in doing the classical contracting regime where you do a project, they pay you, take your money and go. So, Mr. Speaker, it's very important we do that. Mr. Speaker, lastly, I will want to also suggest that apart from the budgetary offloading of projects, the maker of a statement, let's include in every brochure produced by every ministry or agency, MMDAs, opportunities for private partnership. So that if I go to the Ministry of Interior and I see ABCD brochure, in the brochure somewhere, I can be able to tell that if I call this investor, they can be able to participate with government in providing ABC. Mr. Speaker, thank you very much for the opportunity given.
Thank you. Now the Minister, Deputy Minister-Designate for Western Housing.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to acknowledge and congratulate the maker of the statement, who has just come out from a space that I think he knows that PPPs would work or would have worked very well for him there. Mr. Speaker, one thing I've observed about the PPPs, public-private partnerships, is that capacity building. Now, there are a lot of consultants who are in the private sector, and I would suggest that the Ghana Institute of Engineering, project management professionals, Ghana Institute of Surveyors, Ghana Institute of Architects would undergo this kind of capacity building for public-private partnerships. It's very important because sometimes, if you look at the consultancy space, there's a huge percentage of them in the private sector. But then, in the public sector, they have the benefit of training in public-private partnerships in IP3 and other institutions, but the private sector may not have because of maybe sponsorship and all that. So I would suggest that they should just try and build local capacity. There are people over here in the public sector who have those skills, which can be transferable to the private sector. Because the strength of a public-private partnership also is very important that the parties are very good in negotiation. And so that is where legal skills also come into play. So I cannot underscore or underestimate the value of skills in being able to be built up in these areas. For example, in the water sector, perhaps maybe somebody has some funding and wants to do a water system. Naturally, they would like that it must be paid for somehow. You build it, you operate it, you transfer it, but during that period, you want to be sure that you'll be able to get your returns, plus profitability, plus you should be able to maintain the plants. And so some of these will also relate to tariff building and all that, and I think that it's a skill on its own. But it's very important that we build a capacity. Mr. Speaker, in Malaysia or so, the Office of the President has a PPP office literally attached to it, and that shows the importance of public-private partnerships and what the value that it is attached to them by the government. In the US, like a colleague said, majority of the roads that have been told are often under public-private partnerships. You cannot have a certain quantum of infrastructure without having a certain segment of them under the public-private partnership regime. So moving forward, for our government, as we intend to reset, we also intend to look at some of these arrangements, but in a more practical and pragmatic way. But it's very important to build the capacity of institutions, of personnel who will be negotiating, who will be executing, who will be managing, facilitating, and at the end of the day, because you want to transfer a project completed, still well maintained, with still a certain lifespan after it has been completed and used. And it's very important that those skills from beginning to end are learned appropriately in this country. Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you
Speaker.
very much. Let me now come to leadership.
Speaker, let me start on a note of congratulating our colleague for setting up a very important conversation. And it's my prayer that we'll push this matter to its logical conclusion. Speaker, many members who have spoken to this matter have tried to put matters in context, especially the road minister who spoke to it, citing very good examples. The former road minister did same. Speaker, from where I sit, I may be wrong, but I get this impression that political parties and government parties are formed on certain ideologies, center-right, center-left, and more often than not, we tend to be guided overly by these concepts that form political parties who eventually take over the reins of governance of a country. The NPP is known, the capitalist party. President Kufuor took over the reins of this government, is on record to have implemented social policies, probably, arguably, one of the best social policies implemented happened in the time of President Kufuor. Then you look at our colleagues in the NDC, who are also credited as socialists. And hence, if you look at the policies that they implement more often than not, may not necessarily reflect their beliefs. So political parties are beginning to shift away from their main fulcrum of concept that form these parties. Because the PPP more often than not are known to be something that is a concept that capitalist states normally buy into it. That's been the trend. Now, with the changes and the vagaries of geopolitics as is happening now, even the socialists themselves are beginning to tend to that concept. I think we need to change our mindset. There's a fundamental need for a mindset change. Yes. Unless we do that, this whole concept, PPP, is still new to us. We talk about it nicely. We passed the act. We thought that we have arrived. The discussions are held. It goes to the Ministry of Finance. It goes on the shelves, and it gets dusty on the shelves. People are afraid, and the fear is still there. There's a lot of fear associated. So I think that our colleague has set the tone. It's something we need as a parliament. We need to upgrade further, probably get a committee to work on it, the fine details. Why are we unable to enforce the act that we passed? Why is finance more often than not, and both administrations, we are all guilty, they drag their feet. The ministers themselves, who are very much aware, when you speak to them one-on-one on concept of PPP, they are very much aware about it, they love it. When it comes to implementation, they drag their feet. Why? And for me, that is a mystery. And until we resolve that, we will not be able to be making the headway that we all need. Of course, we all know government cannot fund all projects by itself. We need a partnership from the public. These things are known, and we speak about it as theories. How do we demystify this theory and get people to understand that indeed this is the approach? My respected Minister for Roads, who I know is very much into such matters, he himself, he is not too comfortable, as he said, that the roads, the projects that were mentioned, out there it is known as a PPP project, but indeed when he got to the ministry, he realized it's something that has to be funded by government. So what is it? Whom are we deceiving? At one breath we brandish PPP, at another breath we come lacking. So I want to go away from the theory. Let's get practical. And this is a matter, I thought that this should have come from your side, but well, this is a house. So once it's coming from our side, it's the Parliament of Ghana, so fine. We want to see a certain roadmap. And that roadmap must be a departure from what we are known, what we are used to. PPP, theories, and then it ends where? It doesn't go anywhere. So I hope we'll be able to redefine our approach in terms of the prosecution of the concept of PPP. And thankfully we are very good. The Honorable nominee for Gisela, the Honorable Gisela, I know is very good. That's one of her areas. She's very good. She's been a consultant to get fund for a very long time. I have been chasing a few payments for her. She's very good in that area. My good friend, the Minister for Road, is also very good. Speaker, if we wish to come to some logical conclusion on this matter, some work has to be done. And that if we can continue and get a committee to do a thorough work on this PPP concept, I think we'll be able to make a headway. Elsewhere, and fact be told, Speaker, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. There are other jurisdictions like Indonesia, for instance. As an independence, Ghana's per capita income was same as Indonesia. The concept of PPP, Indonesia is doing so well. I'm told India is equally doing so well. So we may have to pick up some lessons from this and appropriate it to our unique circumstances as a country, and then we can get the rule clear and prosecute the matter. But let me comment the Honorable Opon Nkrumah, Koju Opon Nkrumah, and he's a proud Easterner. Esquire. He's a proud Easterner.
Is that where you are going? Is that where you are going?
Oh, Speaker, I'm only commending my fellow Easterner for bringing up such an important matter and also setting up a very important discussion. Speaker, we shouldn't wish this matter away. Let's continue with it. Let's continue. The discussion should go on, and I'm sure that we'll come to some logical conclusion and define
so much.
A workable path. I thank you, Speaker.
Majority leadership.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much for the opportunity, and let me thank the maker of the statement. Honorable Kojo Opon Nkrumah, he was a member of the Finance Committee where we passed the PPP Act at 10:30, and he played a very instrumental role in passing that bill into an act. So coming back to inform the House that there are some defects in the law, so that he's seeking the consent of all members so that we can do some amendment to make the law work. I think it is in order. Because, Mr. Speaker, every investor wants to maximize his profit. And I remember we met with the Minister of Finance. They walk us through the processes. You can see less about 25 projects identified. But they'll come back to tell you the next day that this project is not bankable. How can I recoup my investment if I put, let's say, $1 billion into this road project or into this infrastructure? So he's looking back maybe 10 to 25 years to get back his money. And another leg is, Mr. Speaker, you come back to the state for state guarantee. And it becomes a contingent liability on the state. Failure to make due the repayment. So these are some of the issues we need to address. And if we do a proper assessment, and we get to know that contractor A don't have the capacity to execute the project, by public education, you can put 2-3 contractors together to form consortium so that they can execute the project. But like the example the road minister just gave. On paper, we've entered into agreement that this project is PPP project or PPP funded project. But in reality, the person doesn't have the capacity to raise the resources. So they say to end up raising the scarce resources to commence the project, sometimes even to complete the project. So by the end of the day, why do you invite somebody who doesn't have the capacity in the first place? Who did the project appraisal? Who did the assessment? And who executed that contract? And you walk on the street, oh, this project is a PPP arrangement for 25 years. The investor will recoup his investment. By the end of the day, he doesn't have the capacity to undertake the project. And the burden will also come to the state. And Mr. Speaker, there are some projects located in some areas of the country. No investor will also venture into those areas. So let's get it right and get the project in order, that these areas will allow the private investors to venture into these areas. So the state will also take up other low-hanging projects so that the people will benefit and will give the private sector the needed education, will create a neighboring environment for them so they can also venture into those areas for the good of all of us. Mr. Speaker, let me again thank the maker of the statement, and I'm looking forward, either he will come by a private member bill to amend the act, or the state will take over. Whichever way that we think it will help us, we'll work on it because we understand the law, we pass the law, and we can easily do the amendment to suit our current situation so that the private sector will also take advantage for the good of all of us. I thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. I think we all agree that this statement is a very, very important statement going forward as a nation. So I'm happy that almost all the relevant ministries have commented on it. The Minister for Roads and Highways has commented. The Deputy Minister Designate for Western Housing has also commented. And other members who are well placed have also commented. Deputy Minister Designate for Lands and Natural Resources has also commented. So we hope that this particular statement will lead us to somewhere. So, Honorable Member for Asutifi North, Honorable Beneza Kwakuado, are you in the chamber? Yes. Take the floor and yes.
Speaker, if you may, I am happy you agreed with my colleagues on the importance of the statement. So I want to pray you, as a Parliament of the Republic, probably we should also initiate something on our own. And I'll leave as to how we go about it, Speaker, I'll be guided by your wisdom. And Speaker, I heard you say you hope. Yes, we will hope, but if we can set something in motion.
Honorable Minority Whip, I think we have an act, and per the statement, the act needs to be revisited. So once the act is there, I think the Minister for Western Housing and the Deputy is here, the Rules Minister is also here. They can initiate it at the cabinet level, because I think once the act is there, I wouldn't personally encourage that a private member bill is taken to look into it. So once the relevant ministers are here, please take note of it and see how best we can quickly address the loopholes so that the act can be meaningful to all of us. On that note, I will invite the member for Asutifi North to take the floor and read his statement.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to present this statement on the above subject matter, that is, the recent killings by the police and private security details stationed at Newmont Ghana Gold Limited, Ahafo, Kenyasi. Mr. Speaker, residents of Asutifi North have, over the past 3 years, experienced brutal attacks in the hands of security personnel stationed at Newmont Ghana Gold Limited. Some of these attacks have resulted in major injuries and deaths of affected victims. I am therefore making this statement and pray that Mr. Speaker will direct for the Inspector General of Police to appear before the House and provide same with updates on the various incidents so far. Mr. Speaker, on 14th November 2022, the police security details stationed to protect the concession of the mining company pursued 3 young men on a tricycle and opened fire on them, leading to the death of one and in the process injuring the others. The IGP sent a delegation to Kenyasi for investigations to be conducted. However, outcome of the said investigation is yet to be known. Mr. Speaker, on 25th August 2024, the police and Newmont security operatives chased a 25-year-old young man spotted in their concession, leading to the young man falling into a dam created by Newmont and died as a result. In fact, it took my effort in making sure the family of the deceased obtained the body of their relative for a befitting burial just this January 2025. Mr. Speaker, on the 8th of January 2025, the police and Newmont security detail chased some group of young men, apprehended 3 of them, and opened fire at them, killing them instantly. The IGP went there, indicated that thorough investigation will be conducted into the incident. However, results of the investigation is yet to be known. Mr. Speaker, just this Sunday, the 23rd of February 2025, the private security detail in Newmont chased and apprehended a young man, stabbed him, and took him to a private hospital, but the young man was pronounced dead upon arrival. Mr. Speaker, my engagement with the District Security Council and information from the District Police Commander of Asutifi North shows that the police detailed at Newmont site are directly deployed from the police headquarters, Accra, and are part of the counter-terrorism unit. This deployment from Accra do not report to the District Police Commander and therefore carry out instructions from headquarters. Mr. Speaker, my experience in the operations of Newmont Ahafo Mines makes me appreciate the level of tolerance and sense of responsibility that the company has towards its mining communities. They do not compromise on safety and expect each life to be protected in their course of operations. Drivers are even advised to drive with caution and not cause harm to even animals. So why is the police and private security of Newmont killing innocent young men who go out in search of food for their families? The reason has always been that these young men encroached the concession of Newmont illegally. Mr. Speaker, should gold be more valued than the lives of our youth? Mr. Speaker, with these few words, I pray that you refer this matter to an appropriate committee and direct that the IGP comes to this House to brief us on why deployment to Newmont site is directly made from Accra and are not subject to the orders of the District Police Command in the district they operate within, and equally update the House on the various investigations he has undertaken for the necessary actions to be taken. Before I end, Mr. Speaker, I want to extend my condolence to the family of all deceased young men in the Asutifi North constituency who have been affected by these brutalities. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for indulging me.
Thank you very much. Honourable members, this one too, we are going to take two from each side, then we can. So, Honourable Member for
Mr.
Bimbira.
Speaker, I thank you very much. Mr. Speaker, I don't intend to comment, but I intend to make a plea to you that since the Minister of the Interior and the Minister of Defense will be coming into this House to brief us on Boko, you should add this matter to it. If you open up this matter for comment, without us knowing exactly what happened, that this young man died, this House may not like the outcome of what people will say. So I will say that if it is possible, and if it meets your good intention, let us add this very matter that happened at Newmont to the briefing that the Interior Minister will be coming to brief this House. That is what I will say. Otherwise, Mr. Speaker, the things that may come out, maybe it's too early in the day for us to say some of the things that we want to say. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Well. Yes, Honourable Minister for Education.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. I should commend Honourable Ebenezer Kwekuado for bringing the matter affecting his constituent on the floor of Parliament. Mr. Speaker, that is how it should be. He is exercising his mandate in a representative capacity as elected member of Parliament for Asutifi North, and a matter of concern to him. But Mr. Speaker, as rightly advised by the Honourable Nitiwil of Bimbila, ministerial responsibility and accountability rests with the Honourable Minister for the Interior. But probably what he should add is to state that the Minister for Interior should be accompanied by the Inspector General of Police, which is natural, In any case, when the minister is coming, he probably will come with the minister. Then, Mr. Speaker, even though you are not opening this up to debate, just to caution the Ghana Police Service, and Mr. Speaker, yourself a good lawyer, when the Constitution says uphold the dignity of men, and that it uses the word inviolable, it is not for the police to shoot as and when they please. No. Even shooting is regulated by law, is regulated by conduct, regulated by practice. This trigger happy, a portion of them who get trigger happy, Mr. Speaker, Parliament must support him in expressing concern about the way they treat suspects. The Constitution says uphold their dignity. They get somebody, they start slapping. That's not dignity. That's not honor of dignity. Even trotro drivers, the way they treat them, that is not what the Constitution expects them to do. So, Mr. Speaker, yes, this matter, maybe even, Mr. Speaker, as Honorable Nitu will observe, you may want this even to go to committee of the whole, because mining, particularly in that community, means a lot for them in terms of opportunities, of employment and others. There may be more to it. But Mr. Speaker, significant to his submission is that why is deployment done from Accra, Regional Police Command, District Police Command? What has happened to the hierarchy of the police command system? That is part of his concern. So, Mr. Speaker, let me commend him, but this House, when we have opportunity, we must recommend compensation being paid to the innocent life that is lost. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, honorable members, I think honorable member for Tano North is also within that enclave, and I believe he's also one way or the other. Are you also part of the enclave? So, Honorable Gideon Buakon, you may also, but please be guided, because already we've been advised not to even open up. So please, I'm just giving you the opportunity to comment, but don't lead us astray.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for recognizing that the honorable member who made a statement shares certain commonalities with me in terms of developments in our constituency and what pertains with regards to Newmont operations and the activities of miners and people who are seeking to unlawfully attack some of these companies. Mr. Speaker, in that view, my comment is more fortified by the poetic version of the post-1946 post-war confessional prose by the German Lutheran Martin Niemöller, which serves more or less as a precautionary reminder of the dangers of inaction in the face of injustice. Mr. Speaker, the German Lutheran said, and I quote, "First, they came for the communist, and I did not speak out because I was not a communist. Then they came for the socialist, and I did not speak out. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak out for me." Mr. Speaker, the statement made by the honorable member is so important because within the Ahafo region, and I have our senior brothers here, Honorable Collins Dauda, Honorable Eric Opoku, who are seniors. This small region of 6 constituencies and 6 municipal and district assemblies is more or less becoming characterized by a lot of security threats. And Newmont currently have operated in the Ahafo South area, which falls within the constituency of the honorable member. And they are in my constituency, Ahafo North. And Mr. Speaker, It is so shocking that within the short period that Newmont has been in the Tananoff constituency, we have begun to see the influx of so many people coming into the constituency with the aim to mine and not work with Newmont, but carve their own mining operations outside what is legitimately allowed. And these have posed a lot of security threats. Recently, a gentleman was seen on TikTok, live video, issuing threats to Newmont and trying to more or less indicate that if they are not allowed to enter certain concessions, they are going to take the law into their own hands. Mr. Speaker, I wish to put on record here that there's a lot and intense security threat in the region, and it is important we are calling on the IGP and the Minister for Interior to come to this House to speak to the issues. I would be so glad if indeed I can go back to the constituency knowing very well that there is no threat to mining sites and there is no threat of security on the people or visited on the people in the Tananoff constituency. Mr. Speaker, with that said, I think I will wait to see the time that your good leadership will allow the Minister for Interior and the IGP to come to this House to speak to the security threats that are around the mining operations in the entire Hafo region, particularly the Tananoff constituency. Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you very much. Yes, Honorable Peter. Oh, Honorable Peter, hold on. Honorable Collins, I thought you are the senior most in the chamber, so once you get up, I have to give you the reverence. So
thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I thank you very much for the opportunity to add my voice to the comments made so far regarding the statement made by Honorable Ebenezer Kwaku-Addo. Mr. Speaker, I also appreciate the point made by Honorable Nitiwu that this matter be referred to the Minister of Interior. So it will be part of the envelope that he will be bringing to this House. But, Mr. Speaker, the Minister for the Interior, the IGP, will address this House mainly on matters relating to security. But I'm looking at another dimension of the matter. And that dimension has to do with the relationship between the mining company and the people of the catchment area where they mine. Mr. Speaker, before any mining company is granted a mining license, public forum is organized to explain how the mining company intends to mine in the area. And some promises, some commitments are made during such meetings. In the Hafo area, there was a commitment to provide jobs, improve the welfare of the people of Hafo when the mine is established. Even though the mining company continues to mine since the day it was granted a license to operate in the area, I am not sure that the people in the catchment area are all happy about the activities of the mining company. The maker of the statement, Honorable Ebenezer Kwaku-Addo, indicated in the statement that if you are a driver of Newmont Hafo and on your way you came across a snail or a snake, you dare not run over the snake or the snail. You are required as a driver to wait until the snail crosses, or you pick the snail, put it into the bush before you cross. I don't see why this same thing that is offered to the animal cannot be offered to a human being. That is why I have a problem. But I guess when the Minister for the Interior appears, we'll get a second opportunity to look at it. I will entreat the mining company that much as we appreciate what they do for us in terms of social responsibility, I wish to state that the people of Ahafo will not appreciate them if they will give us funds to construct school buildings, courthouses, police stations, and they will ask security people to open guns on us and kill the people of Ahafo. We will not be happy. They can do anything for us. We will not appreciate them if they continue to do what they are doing or what they have been doing. This is not the first incident that has happened there. Several incidents have happened, and I wish to indicate that as soon as such an incident happens, in this recent one, the victims involved are from Achirensuya, which is a community in my constituency. And when we're organizing the burial for the victims, I was told or contacted by the chief director of the Ahafo region that the company wanted to fund the funeral of the victims. You employ security people, they open arms on innocent citizens. That Newmont must improve upon the relationship they have with the people of Ahafo, particularly the catchment area. I wish to further emphasize that the people of Ahafo will never be happy with them. They can provide everything in terms of infrastructure for us. If they continue to ask their security people to do what they are doing, taking the lives of our people, they should rather stop building the roads. They should rather stop building the schools. They should rather stop providing the social amenities they provide for the people. We cherish the lives of our people more than what they do in terms of social responsibility they provide for us. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yeah, Peter, I called you earlier on, so let me take you away, then I come to leadership.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much for the opportunity to make some few contributions to the statement ably delivered by my younger brother, the MP for Asitupi North, Honorable Ebenezer Kweku-Addo. Let me first of all convey my condolences to the bereaved families. Losing one life is one too many when it has to do with mining. Mr. Speaker, this is not just purely a security issue. This is an issue that has to do with mining that has gone bad and creating issues of insecurity. As much as I agree with my elder brother who just spoke, and as much as I also agree with Honorable Haruna Idrisu and Honorable Nitiwu, it is important for us to put the Minister for Interior and the Minister for Honorable Amakofi-Boa to come together, lands and natural resources, to come together with Honorable Muntaka to brief this House. Because if the mining rules are right, and the relation between the mines and the community is right, I am sure that this mistrust will not come up and these insecurities will not be felt. Mr. Speaker, as a matter of education, we all need to understand that when you find somebody holding a gun, that gun has rules and regulations.
That gun is not supposed to be used to hunt human beings. At any point in time you press the trigger, there must be justifications. If you are a police officer, you can only be justified in pressing the trigger if your own life or the life of other people is at stake, and any other thing that you think of doing has been done and is not possible. And the only thing you can do as a last resort is to press that trigger. Because if you press the trigger and the bullet goes out and somebody dies, it doesn't matter what happens later. That life that is lost is forever. Mr. Speaker, at any point in time that a security officer is supposed to use force, there are 4 principles. You must first of all think about proportionality. The force that you are going to use, is it proportional to the level of resistance you are receiving? You need to answer the second question of legality. Will I be covered by any law if I use this extreme force? Why will I use a sledgehammer to kill a fly? Mr. Speaker, any officer in uniform, whether private or official, should ask yourself the third question. Can I account for the force that I'm using? Will I be right in accounting for it, or will I pay a price for it? And the last point is it necessary at all for me to shoot? Is it necessary at all for me to slap somebody? Is it necessary at all for me to use a truncheon? Is it necessary? Mr. Speaker, all these are basic questions that are used in training people before you are allowed to carry a weapon. Mr. Speaker, you use a weapon to recapture an armed criminal who's escaping from justice. If you find a fugitive who is not a threat to your own life, you don't have to shoot. But whatever happened in Asiti North, we cannot blame anybody until the Minister for Interior comes to brief this House. And very particularly getting brief information from the Minister of Lands and Natural Resources. If they can both come together, that would be fine. Probably there is a relationship between the mines, Newmont, and the communities that will have to be re-established, so that when there is peace from that angle, you will not find somebody carrying a weapon and shooting. Why would we deploy people from Accra to take charge of a mine far away from Accra, and command and control is not controlled? What is the relationship between the forces on the ground and the command on the ground? We need to understand that. And all these things, probably, when the Minister for Interior appears before this House and give us detailed briefing, we will be able to appreciate that. Mr. Speaker, it is important for us to take note that matters of this nature, I want to conclude, matters of this nature, we cannot speak so much openly. And I thank my brother, the Honorable former Defense Minister, for giving that caveat. We agree that when it is in-house, we can speak much about it. But what is important is that Ghanaian life matter, and we must stop killing Ghanaians. And we also have to protect our minds and protect businesses, so that together we can build a very beautiful Ghana as we plan to reset the nation. I'm grateful.
Thank you very much. Leadership.
Speaker, let me show solidarity and sympathies with my colleague who presented a statement. So earlier on, the Honorable Haruna Idrisu had referenced the Constitution, Article 15 on protection of lives, 16 on liberties, Article 12 on fundamental rights. Speaker, even to arrest and to detain or restrict citizens, the Constitution defines clearly how these matters should be dealt with. And our colleagues spoke to the reoccurrence of these incidents. I recall last week thereabout, similar matter was raised, and the majority leader walked in. Apparently he's not been briefed on your earlier referral, inviting the Minister for Defense and Interior to come at close sitting. Speaker, this is not a matter we should belabor, and I will humbly suggest that we probably offload same matter on the earlier directives you gave, so that we'll kill, as it were, kill two birds with a stone. Except to say that as at now, as at today, I must say, the Chief Whip, the Majority Chief Whip, has still not been able to give us directives or some direction when the Defense and Interior Minister will come meet us at close sitting, because that, Speaker, if you recall, that was your directive. So we need to show solidarity with our colleagues, the Honorable Buako and our colleague who spoke. And Speaker, they are only doing their constitutional mandates as representatives of the people, raising these matters to the attention of duty bearers to ensure we bring some sanity onto these constituencies. We have to act ASAP because, Speaker, the possibility of it degenerating is high. It's high, especially where people who are perceived as corporates are walking about in a very close society. They are walking about showing off without the authority or the law catching up with them, has the potential of inciting others to resort to other violent exchanges, which may not be too good for our country. Ghana is a peaceful country. We had a peaceful election. We have a government in place. When these things happen, there are incidents of people taking advantage. These things will happen, and it may not be coming from people put out by, people from government side. Bad individuals, bad people could take advantage of the situation and make government look bad. I want to join earlier speakers. And Speaker, we'll go by your earlier directives that we have a closed sitting. This is a security sensitive matter. It cannot be open at plenary. That we can have a closed sitting and get some briefing and see the way out. Speaker, thank you.
Thank you very much. Majority Leadership.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I want to join colleagues who appreciate the fact that many of these matters are sensitive matters, and so I will be very cautious in commenting about these matters, and to say that in the mining situation, we need to have the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, step up in terms of their work, because before any mining license or concession is given or any development of a mine is approved, very extensive consultation is undertaken in the communities. Communities are educated, and the buy-in of the communities must be obtained even before certain approvals are given for development to take place. And so when those are not done, or they are done but they are not done properly, or that the genuine consent of the communities are not obtained, you will end up with these situations where some members of the community will resist. They will oppose, and sometimes the way that they go about it could end up being violent. Also, it is important that we pay attention to the local content policies of government. The local content policies aim at involving the communities and Ghanaians as part of the implementation of the mining project. They acquire an interest because they are the subcontractors. And when they are the subcontractors, it creates an opening for their fellow countrymen to also participate. So you will have a mine, and generally, almost every subcontractor is a Ghanaian. Most senior level operatives are Ghanaians, and it enables some level of local ownership of the mine. But when we don't implement the local content policies well, and I don't mean local content where the mining activities in Western region, then you go and bring some other contractor, even though he might be Ghanaian, he has no connection with the local community. And so the workers that he might bring have nothing to do with the local community. And then the locals actually become aliens in their own, territory, where a major economic opportunity is taking place that should be empowering them and not rather disempowering them. And so if we push and ensure the implementation of the local content policies that this Parliament has enacted, that seeks to involve communities in the implementation of major mining activities, we might see a greater ownership of mines by our local people. And I think when they own it, they will not fight it as a project. And lastly, Mr. Speaker, you go to a region, you go to a district where there is a big mining operation, like Newmont, like Anglo-Gold Ashanti, like Goldfields, and etc. Outside the borders of the mine, you see absolute chaos, absolute, lack of organization, no law and order, no planning. You cross the gates of the mine and you enter into the mining community, and it's a paradise. It is a paradise with beautiful golf courses, with finely constructed houses, with roads properly paved. And they are living in a paradise, and just across the road where the indigenes, the locals, the owners of the land are living in absolute squalor. Mr. Speaker, it naturally breeds envy. It naturally breeds hatred among the young people. A few weeks ago, I had an opportunity to have a conversation with the CEOs of one of the big mines, and I was telling them that, how do you manage to go to sleep and sleep soundly when you live in such paradise, and just across the street, your fellow countrymen are living in such absolute squalor, and yet within the mine, you have the resources to help them to develop the basic infrastructure in their communities. And you will just not allow your equipment to step outside and just fix the roads, to just make sure that basic infrastructure. The young people have playgrounds. You could just use the equipment to clear the fields and just put posts for them and put some small lighting. Why do you think that such people will not hate you so intensely that when there's an opportunity, they will physically attack you? So mines, when they go there, must own the communities, especially because many of them are destined to be there for decades. There are some mines that will be there for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. So you should take the community immediately around the mine as part of your community and share your resources with them and see whether they will have such hatred for the mines that they will start attacking the mine. Even when others who migrate from far away come and they pose a threat to the mine, the indigenes will collaborate with the mine to defend the mine, because the mine is their asset and their livelihoods depend on it. So let's look at the issues of peace and security from that angle, and not simply a question of policing and military participation. Mr. Speaker, the towns and villages around mines tend to be the most expensive. The most expensive because their lands are taken away, agricultural declines, and so food naturally becomes expensive because there's an influx of people who are attracted to the mine. So there is an immediate population increase, higher population density, and that increases cost of living. Rental becomes expensive, food becomes expensive, all services become expensive. And this brings a certain toll on the lives of the indigenes of the place. So let's begin to look at how, when a mine is sited, the mine will also invest in major commercial agricultural enterprises not far away from the mines, because their presence there attracts population and they need food. And sustainably, you need to produce the food close by. And so whilst you are investing in all the heavy equipment to do mining, invest in large-scale commercial farms not far to produce food for the people that you have attracted, in order to maintain the cost of food and the livelihood in the community. Mr. Speaker, I have commenced discussion with some of the leaders of the mines for us to have some conference around these ideas and these themes to see how mines and communities around mines can share the resources that are in the mines. Immediately within the mine, you have serious finance officers who know how to go to the international financial market and raise hundreds of millions of dollars to invest in the mines. And yet the assemblies that are there don't even have the capacity to raise municipal bonds. And yet they need those municipal bonds just to fix toilets and fix schools and fix water systems in the community. You have mines that will go and buy ADTs, the most sophisticated, the biggest mining equipment, and yet just a few dozers and bulldozers to fix the roads in the region, in the district, they are not there. So all these resources are in the mines. How will we immediately outside the walls of the mines, as a government, build on these resources for the development of the towns and the communities immediately surrounding the mines? If we did that, things will not escalate to the point where it will be a question of shooting and killing. And so I will agree with our colleagues that the ministers will come and brief us, but because they are sensitive matters, the briefings, I believe, will be at the committee of the whole meeting, and we should commit to keep the information within us and not to use it, in our politics and etc. in the communities in a way that will undermine the effort to ensure law and order. Because none of you will know where you will be anywhere in the country. You can think that it is Bibiani. On the day that there will be an outbreak of violence, you may have gone to Bibiani to attend a schoolmate's funeral, and you get caught up in the violence. So security anywhere in the world is security, that is meant for all of us. And so we must all collectively support the ministers to do their work and ensure that there's law and order. On that note, Mr. Speaker, I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, honorable members. I think our comment has been measured, and as the recommendation has come across, we will add this to the Minister for Interior. I think we are not certain as to when he is actually coming to the House. So please, leader of the House, please, at least ferry this one as well to him, so that if he can come to the House by Friday, if it is possible, to come and brief us. The Walwale issue, then we can add up this one to him, so that I come and brief the House. And like we said, when he comes, you have a close sitting discussion with him. So please, I so direct that leader, you relate with the Minister for Interior. In fact, someone was also discussing the issue with mining, and therefore we should add up the Minister for Lands. But for that one, I will urge that we file a question to the Minister to come and answer relating to that. This one is a security matters, and we want to build the Minister for Interior specifically to come and handle that. So I so direct. We take now is the turn for Honorable Davis Opoku.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to bring to the attention of this House to the unlawful ministerial interference in the enforcement actions of the National Communications Authority. Mr. Speaker, I rise today with deep concern regarding the recent directive issued by the Minister for Communications, Digital Technology and Innovations in a media advisory dated 18 February 2025. This directive unlawfully instructs the National Communications Authority to take enforcement action against certain broadcasting stations allegedly operating without valid authorization. Such actions represent an unacceptable overreach of executive authority, undermining institutional independence, press freedom, and the rule of law. Mr. Speaker, the Minister does not possess the legal authority to direct the NCA's regulatory or enforcement actions. Mr. Speaker, Section 3(1) of the National Communications Act states that except as otherwise provided in this Act, the authority shall not be subject to the direction or control of any other person or authority in performing its functions. Similarly, Mr. Speaker, the Electronics Communications Act 2008, Act 775, reinforces this independence. Mr. Speaker, I specifically refer this House to Section 2(4), which says that broadcasting services require frequency authorization by the NCA. Section 9 talks about spectrum usage requires NCA authorization. And Section 58(1) says that the NCA controls, plans, administers, and licenses the radio frequency spectrum. The Minister's directive to close certain broadcasting stations directly contravenes these provisions. Mr. Speaker, if allowed to remain in effect, it could set a dangerous precedent for political interference in independent institutions, potentially extending beyond the NCA. Mr. Speaker, the minister's role is confined to policy direction, not enforcement. Section 97(1) of the Act 775 states, the minister may, on the advice of the authority by legislative instrument, make regulations generally to give effect to the provisions of this Act. Section 41 of the same Act limits the minister's powers to policy directives, not operational decisions. The directive issued in the media advisory oversteps legal boundaries and constitutes executive overreach. Mr. Speaker, due process was ignored. Even if the affected stations encounter licensing issues, the law specifies a procedure for addressing such matters. Mr. Speaker, Section 9 of Act 775 requires formal notification of the alleged breach. It also requires a reasonable time frame which must be provided for rectification. And the same Act says that the station must be allowed to appeal before enforcement action is taken. Section 13 of Act 775 further stipulates that the frequency authorization may be revoked following due process. There is no evidence that these legal procedures were observed prior to the minister's directive. If enforcement actions proceed without adherence to due process, this directive would constitute an abuse of executive power and direct threat to fair regulatory practices. Mr. Speaker, press freedom is also under threat. The directive is not merely a regulatory overreach. It constitutes an assault on press freedom. Article 21, 1A of the 1992 Constitution assures freedom of expression, including media freedom. Government's direct shutdowns without due process convey a chilling message to journalists and media organizations that their operations are subject to political approval. A free press is vital for democratic accountability, and this unconstitutional interference must not be tolerated. Mr. Speaker, this House must act swiftly to prevent any further abuse of power. I have submitted a half-hour motion summoning the minister to appear before Parliament to explain this unlawful directive. Furthermore, Mr. Speaker, I urge Parliament to summon the Minister of Communications and to clarify this unlawful directive to the NCA. 2, instruct the NCA to suspend all enforcement actions related to the minister's directive until due process is confirmed. 3, charge the committees on communications and constitutional and legal affairs with investigating whether the minister acted unilaterally or under political influence. Right Honorable Speaker, this represents a test of our commitment to democracy. This issue transcends political parties and centers on safeguarding of our democracy. We must act decisively to uphold the rule of law and prevent any further executive outrage. Ghana's democracy is at stake. Thank you very much for the opportunity to bring this matter to your attention. Thank you.
Well, honorable members, we are going to also have 2 comments from each side. But before then, please indulge me in 5 minutes suspension.
to